So some competition is good, because if we have some competition, we can go through and find out if it's a good item, and so we can also use software. But of course, some people don't want to sell items that have already got competition. They want to go and find that thing that's going to sell a gazillion times. We don't do that anymore. We used to. We stopped that probably 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago now. Time tends to fly as you get older. But we used to do that every Wednesday night, but we don't do it anymore. We need to sell proven products, because now we like data. Okay, now another place to find brands, because this is most people on Amazon just go here, the featured brands, Crayola, this is in the toy section obviously, Crayola, Nerf, Thomas and Friends, Shopkins, but there's a button here that says see more, which hardly anyone ever clicks on. If you click that, it shows you all the other brands, and there's a ton of opportunities in here. Don't just focus on the top sellers, because most beginners all focus on what we call the BSS strategy, BSS, two S's, and they're all focusing on the best seller. That's what we call the BSS strategy, best seller strategy. Everyone just wants to do best sellers, the cheapest items, and the lowest cost and the smallest size. That's what like 90% of beginners want to do, and they all go out there and they find USB cables, iPhone accessories, iPad covers, all that stuff where there's hardly any money in it, and you've got to go and buy a ton of it to make any money. So it's got a very high MOQ, minimum order quantity, because you've got to buy vast amounts of it to try and make money. Now, don't get caught up in what every man and his dog is doing, because that's what they're doing. So Amazon also shows you the movers and shakers, and there's a URL which I'll give you up here, which is the movers and shakers. These are the stuff that's coming up fast. You can also just see like these books and whatever. To every category, you can just click on movers and shakers and it will show you. Now, we're blessed to live in this day and age where we can see in any particular, many companies like Kmart, Big W and many other companies, they show you their hottest items. It says popular. So 4 or 5 years ago, we didn't have this ability because they weren't using what we call dynamic websites. Anyone who's done my dropship course knows we talk a lot about dynamic websites. Websites are websites that continually update to what's in stock. Right, so this is a dynamic website. It's always changing. So it's showing you continuously, it's calculating what's the most popular products on Kmart. And we've plucked out tons of products from Kmart that are the hottest items. And other places have this too, like places like Super Cheap Auto, Target, Big W, all these places in America, Walmart, they have these dynamic websites so we can see their most popular items. It's like someone giving you the keys to the accounts department and be able to go through all their records and figure out what's their top selling items. It's right there in front of us. We just click on popular. So this is really, really gold, because most people aren't doing this kind of stuff. They're just going to get the most run-of-the-mill software, looking at what the software says is the top selling items, iPhone cable, USB cable, and that's what they're focusing on. We can also go to places like Pinterest. In Pinterest, we can search keywords, whatever, PowerPoint presentation tool or whatever, put in PowerPoint, hot PowerPoint, PowerPoint reviews, whatever, and it'll come up and it'll show you all the main keywords that everyone's searching for. All these, just swap out the X's and replace it with whatever you're putting in, kids ride on car, PowerPoint device, whatever. You can also do the same in Google. We'll talk about Google tonight. This is, Google Ad Planner is free. It's called Google Ad Planner, and it's a Google keyword research tool. If you put in any kind of keyword, it will show you what everyone else is searching for. So in other words, you put in, I don't know, pet, it'll come up and say pet carrier, pet blanket, pet whatever, just by putting the word pet in there. And the Google Ad Planner is free. Now, a lot of people don't think it's free because it asks you everything, but it knows everything about you. It knows your head and night and everything else, does Google, so it's nothing, you're not telling them they don't know. They ask you for their credit card, but they don't charge you anything, it's free. And also merchant words, which I'm going to get to tonight. They're great ways of finding more keywords. Any questions on that so far? Yeah, if you search either Google Keyword Tool or Google Ad Planner, as in adverts, advertising, because it's a tool used for buying Google traffic for the Google pay-per-click advertising. So it's a tool that you use to find keywords for your advertising with Google. But you're not going to use it for that, you're just going to use it as a great keyword tool. And of course it's coming from the horse's mouth from Google, so it's telling what everyone's searching for. If you Google it in the ad planner or Google keyword tool, you'll find it. Okay, so restricted brands. Now, Amazon calls restricted brands gated products or restricted brands. And there's two ways of finding out if you're going to sell a product, is it restricted, is it gated? And you can go through the mountains of links trying to figure out, is it a gated product, like, you know, say beauty is classified as food, so you can't sell that unless you've got approval. But rather than go through all that, you can simply just try to list the item and do 95% of the listing. And if you don't get an error, awesome. If you do get an error, you know it's gated. So here's some of the gated products. And all these are hyperlinks, which means you click into that, you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So you can, as you can see, you can spend hours trying to figure out if your product is gated. So what we do is we just try to list it, which only takes a few minutes. You don't do a brilliant ad, you don't have to load up photos, you just put in some, you know, a few keywords and that's it. And if it lets you, awesome. If not, but don't always give up if it is gated, it's restricted, but it's something that you're very passionate about, maybe it's worth pursuing and getting approval to do it. So don't give up just because of the face of it. If you want to know more about gated stuff, here's the link. And it shows you all the stuff that's gated. And you can also go through there and get approval for any particular thing that if you want to go that far. Okay, yeah, like I said, you test it, try listing it, but don't go live. Just try listing it to see what happens. It's much quicker. And don't get caught out with this trap, because I've seen several people come up with this trap in America where they go and they buy stuff, they import stuff because it's already being sold on Amazon, so it must be okay, right? No, that seller's got approval. So don't fall into the trap thinking, oh, it's because it's available on Amazon, anyone can sell it. No, they've just got approval. All right, so I mentioned before about this top 5% category. The top 5%, of course, is finding out what the top selling products are in any category. And you can get, again, you can go through into any category, or into down here, storage and organisation. This is a critical thing. You must click the include out of stock. If you do not click this, you miss out on so many golden opportunities, because the hottest stuff sells out, often very regularly. The hottest stuff sells, which means it goes out of stock. So if you don't tick it, you miss out on the stuff that's gone out of stock, which is often the very, very hot stuff. So it's really critical to always include the out of stock stuff. So you do that out of stock, then it goes there and it shows you how many are in each particular category. And then, of course, you can go down and see what number is. And this item, of course, that says number 1. So this is the number 1 product in home textiles, dish and cloth towels. So that's how we just figure out what's the top 5%. But again, you can use software like eGrow and whatever to do it all automatically for you. And of course, you just divide the sales rank of the listing by the number of items in the category. There's 1,000 in a category, and it's number 1, of course, or it's number 5, it's in the 5%. Another huge way we get traffic, that we find products, and if you do this, you'll never ever run out of products to list, ever. And we do the same with eBay. Right here, it's got the name of the seller. Now, that's actually a hyperlink. If you click on that, you can see how many, you can see all the products that seller is selling. Right? Now, you can go through that seller, and again, the 80-20 rule, we look at what their top 20% is. And you can do exactly the same with eBay. So you've only got to come up with one idea and find one seller, then you're off and running for the rest of your life. Because you can just research all your competitors and then research their competitors, then their competitors, then their competitors, and you never ever run out of products. Because if you just click that, you can see all the products they sell. Just like you can do with eBay. If you're starting off and you want to get into this, a great fun place to kind of start is, are you passionate, are you accidentally knowledgeable about a particular niche? You know, what's your hobby? What are you passionate about? Do you know about, or have your kids made you an expert, in Barbie? You go in the shops off been buying Barbie products, and so you've actually accidentally become a bit of an expert on it. So when you get those newspaper flyers in your letterbox, you know, and something's on special, you know if it's a good price. Or with Lego, or with Harry Potter, or anything else like that, that when specials come out, you know they're a good price. Right, because you know, bells and whistles go off in your head because you've accidentally become an expert. You know, we're all experts about certain things that we're the most passionate about in our life. And if you are, it's a great place because you can then buy some of those items and sell them either FBM or FBA. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? There's people in this room who already do that. Okay, so Amazon fees. Monthly fee is $49 plus GST. Final value fee, FBF. Final value fee is what you get charged when an item sells. It sells for $100. You get charged an additional 6 to 15% depending on what category it's in. It's called a final value fee, just like eBay. If you want to know more about it, I'm not going to go right into the categories tonight, but again, here's a link where you can go through to all the fees on Amazon. Now again, you can get out of this fee up to October, it's free. Yep, someone's, yep.
That 6 to 15%, does that include shipping?
No.
Does it?
No, it doesn't include shipping. Now, for FBA fees, in here. Now, and with FBA, they'll warehouse it all for free initially, and then it gets more expensive as time goes. Actually, let's put it up here. Yeah. So long-term storage fees apply to inventory sales that have been in a fulfillment centre for more than a year. After a year, long-term storage fees will be charged $160 per cubic metre, or a monthly fee of 10 cents per unit, whichever is greater. So in other words, what they want to do, they just don't want you to leave stuff sitting around for years that doesn't sell. You know, they want it's going to get more and more expensive to encourage you to get rid of it. So they're pretty good though. It's still pretty cheap. Anyway, if anyone's got a warehouse, they know it's very cheap. Now, recently Amazon, everyone's been waiting for this. You can now do Amazon pay-per-click advertising, or PPC, pay-per-click. Now, out of all the optimization things we can do, which is there's many, again, it's the 80-20 rule. 20% of all the optimization stuff makes the biggest difference. Advertising on Amazon is one of those things that makes a big difference. Just like on eBay, you can do sponsored ads, which also makes a dramatic difference to your sales. So does advertising on Amazon. It's just been released to Australia. It's not in all categories, like for instance in the baby category, it's not, you can't do it in there yet, but it will eventually be in all categories, just like other countries. But it is available right now. Now I do appreciate tonight is a beginner group, so I'm not going to delve right into this, but anyone wants to know more about it, there's a link. It's only just become available in Australia. But it's something to, if you're an Amazon seller now, take note of it, because if your competitors aren't doing it, you've got a massive edge. Just like with eBay with the sponsored ads. So product sourcing. Wholesaling is like, it's one of the oldest methods of trading. It's like your classic ways. You go and buy bulk of something and then you split it out. So for instance, you might go and buy essential oil. You go and buy 44 gallon drum, 210 litres of essential oil, and then you'll go and get like 5 or 10 ml bottles, and you'll put it into there and sell it off, and you make money. So buying stuff in bulk and selling it off is the classic wholesale method that's been around since the dawn of time, and that's a great way to get started. So the pros of doing this wholesale strategy is you choose existing products which are already selling. So take essential oils. You do peppermint oils selling well, lavender oil, whatever. So you know how much the stuff is selling for. So any products with good sales rank that already show high on Amazon, it's an easy way to get into it, because you're not trying to reinvent the wheel by coming up with some brand new product. You're just taking something that's already existing and selling that. Now, this is a huge thing. When we first learnt this was responsible for 10xing our business, literally 10xing it. And what this means is many sellers, if you want to go and buy some of these, they might say, yeah, okay, their cost for round numbers, they're $50 each. You got to buy 100, therefore, it's $5,000. But if you went to the supplier and said, look, okay, I'm happy to pay $5,000, but I don't want to buy just these? Can I pay $5,000, but instead of that, can I buy 10 of these and buy 10 of all these other products? So now you've got 10 products for your $5,000, not one. And if you do that, you can effectively 10x your business because you're going wide, not deep. And all you're asking about is MOD, minimum order dollar value, instead of MOQ. It makes a dramatic difference to your business. You can literally 10x what you get from one supplier, even more. For a long time, one of our products we're doing was kids ride on cars. And our major competitor for years didn't figure out what we were doing. And they didn't know about it, they hadn't figured out MOD. So they'd bring over like 40-foot container of kids ride on cars with one type of car in it. We'd bring over the same container, but we had 12 different varieties of ride-on car in that one container. And they didn't know what we were doing. So we'd be selling our cars much faster than he was because he only had the one type. So he had to clear out the whole container. Well, we could sell off, we had 12 varieties.
Well, what about replenishing those?
Same deal, just replenish. So, if you've got 10, and let's say it's the same kids ride-on car, they're all 10 different colours. One's obviously going to be the best seller. So you order more of those. And over time you try and get it right so they all sell at the same time. The purple one sells the worst, so you order the least amount of those. But the bottom line is, always try to ask your suppliers about MOD, not MOQ, because most people just go MOQ. MOD is a massive difference to your business. It means you can go wide, not deep. Okay, so you create unique bundled listings for Amazon. Now, I mentioned before about this bundling issue. This is a great way to take the information that you figured about bundling and go to your suppliers. So if you figured out that they buy this and they also buy the case, which is an optional extra, now there's your first thing you can do with MOD. Okay, I want to buy these, but I also want to buy these cases. Because Amazon told you what you could bundle. So if it's from the same manufacturer, there's the other products that you want to start bundling with your item. Is everyone clear on that? Bundling and the MOD work hand in hand. Okay, so MOD allows you to create a wide number of listings instead of deep. And of course, it's a great way to learn the FBA process. And things that are gated, sometimes you can buy them locally and get through the gate. So you're not going to make as much commission on this, or as much profit on it, but at least you can get the ball rolling and learn the process. Now, for finding local wholesale companies, the way to do it is just is in Google. But the thing is, you've got to bear in mind, true wholesalers have got rubbish websites, right? They don't. If you put in the word wholesale and what you're searching for, if they appear in the top 3 pages, you can guarantee they are not a wholesaler, they're a retailer. Wholesalers don't spend a ton of money on their websites, retailers do. Now I know, I used to own, one company I used to own was Cam1 Computer Wholesale, so we had the word wholesale in our name. So a lot of people thought we were a wholesaler, but we weren't. Well, kind of were, we did import, but we weren't. Our target audience was the public, but we picked up a lot of accounts. Like we supplied CSIRO with their computers, University of New England, University of New South Wales, and a whole lot of big companies because they assumed that we were a wholesaler because we had the word wholesale in our name. So don't get tricked with thinking that people have wholesale. If they appear in the first 3 pages of Google, they're almost certainly a retailer and not a wholesaler. So wholesalers don't have good SEO pages. They don't rank high. Again, that's so to find a wholesaler, you search Google. So you put the product name in, whatever you're searching for, plus the word wholesale. Now, and bear in mind, it might take you. You might be in page 10. You might be on page 20 to find the actual wholesaler. Ignore the first 3 to 5 pages. Is everyone clear on that? Last time we had a lot of questions on that. All right. Okay. And just always remember, everything in business is negotiable. Absolutely everything in business is negotiable. So don't ever take first prices, and always go back to all your suppliers and negotiate. Sometimes, you got to pay more money up front. When you've got a brand new supplier, you don't want to ruin the relationship. Pay a bit more, get it happening, get that stuff sold, then go back and hit them with another price. And you just continually negotiate. Now, most of us weren't brought up to negotiate in this country. So where if we're dealing with, say, Asia, they were. So we just always renegotiate every order, negotiate all the time. Now, here's one I've been warned about. ABN numbers. Sometimes suppliers will ask you for an ABN number. It's a very simple thing in Australia to screen, the public to see, are they a true, are they going to resell this item or they want to buy it for themselves? So they're going to ask you, do you have an ABN number? And of course, you can get one, but you must ask your accountant whether you should be asking for one in the first place. But if your accountant says, yeah, you should get one or whatever, they are free from the ATO and they've got instant approval. But I'm not going to give you any recommendations about whether you should get one or not, because I say I've been very much warned about not doing that kind of stuff. I'm just letting you know, they're free and you get instant approval. But sometimes wholesalers will ask you if you have an ABN number. The other thing they might ask you for is, do you have a website? Now, I can answer all questions about this one. And the great thing is, it's not hard or expensive to get yourself a website. You can go to Shopify and get a website for $29 a month. You can get one from Magento for free. If you don't have the skills to set it up, you can pay someone $200 to set it up for you. And then you can populate it by putting on say dropship items. You can put, say, 50 dropship items on. You can pay someone a couple $100 to populate it with, say, 50 dropship items, and now you've got a live website with products. And if they sell, well, they're dropship products. You just log on to your supplier and order them. And now you can go back to your supplier and say, yep, I do have a website, here it is. And the reason why is because a lot of wholesalers do not want to supply you. If you just ring up and say, hey, I want to sell your stuff on Amazon or eBay, they don't want to know you. And the reason why is because they're being hounded by all their bricks and mortar businesses about people selling their stuff online. Because the bricks and mortar owner has got to pay rent every month, they've got to pay their staff, they've got to pay superannuation, workers' compensation, all the insurances, all the utilities, all the expenses that anyone who has a bricks and mortar store knows. There's a ton of them. Where you guys, we just rock up and we've got none of those expenses, and we can slap it up and we can make a major discount that they can't do because we don't have any expenses, where they got tons. So the suppliers are getting hammered about this. So that's why we want to show them that we have other mechanisms to sell, not eBay and Amazon. Yep. You should only be selling stuff that your other competitors are already successfully selling. So don't sell items unless you've got competitors who are already selling the same item at a profit, irrespective of whether the importer or the wholesaler is selling. That doesn't matter. All we care about is there another seller who's selling at the same price that you want to sell it and making profit, and it's got velocity.
So you would go ahead even if your suppliers selling their own brand?
Yeah, well, our staff are not allowed to look at that. All they can look at is there another seller selling for the same price as what we want to sell it for, and it's selling regularly, like it's got enough velocity, greater than more than 15 times a month already. If it is, we'll sell it. We don't care about anyone else selling it, or we care.
Who's selling it?
No.
As long as it's got velocity.
As long as it's got the velocity and at the same price point.
And but then put it with the reviews well.
Well, yeah, reviews, yeah.
You want to get up.
Mm-hmm.
Page, right.
So the big thing is over 90% of sellers don't optimise. So it's very easy to beat them. Okay, so you can just use dropship products to populate a website. It's very easy. So you don't have to buy any stock to populate a website. So how to find products in Asia and other countries? Simple answer, Alibaba. And there's many other ones. There's China sources, there's global sources, there's a DHgate, there's a whole stack of places where we just use Alibaba, and it's up to you guys which ones you want to use. Alibaba's the biggest, owned by a guy called Jack Ma, also owns Tmall. Now, Alibaba is not just in China. We import from China, Malaysia, Vietnam. But you can find products in all countries, including Australia. So if you want to find any product, you just go and search for it here, or you can get quotations now. So you can go click on that blue button and you can populate it, and then the suppliers will come to you.
What about going straight to the manufacturer?
That's how you find the manufacturers. So it's just basically a search engine to find manufacturers. Now, Alibaba is no small business. Last year, 768 billion GMV. So big operations. So if a supplier is not on there, then we're scared and we're going to run the other direction. because they're the biggest. So if any supplier is on someone else like Global Source or whatever, but they're not on Alibaba, why? Why are they not Why are they not on the biggest one?
Can you get scanners on there?
Totally.
Yeah.
But we only use gold site certified sort of things. And also you can use an inspection service. So Alibaba's got a whole, if you want, say, your suppliers in say Shenzhen or wherever, you can find an inspector, and let's say you're doing baby products, you can find an inspector who is used to doing baby products in Shenzhen. So you don't find one inspector, because it's like having one inspector in Australia. You know, you've got a supplier in Darwin, you've got a supplier in Perth, another in Tasmania. You don't have one. So it's the same. China's a very big country. You just find a supplier who's near, an inspector who's near your supplier, who is used to electrical products or whatever you're doing. There's tons of thousands of them on there. So what you can do with there is you can, when you're paying for items, you send the funds through escrow, the money gets held, and it only gets released after an inspector's been out there. And we do what's called the 1 in 10, so we get 1 in 10 products inspected. If they find any problems in those 10, the 1 in 10 that they inspect, we then get every product inspected, and we ask the supplier to foot the bill because we found problems. That's a really quick overview about importing, but yep.
So do you have an agreement signed with your supplier?
Sometimes we have agreements, not always. I mentioned earlier on about continually negotiating, and it's such an important thing. Every time you do a new order, renegotiate. Build the relationship up. We tend to like to pay a bit more at the beginning because we like to try and build the relationships up. So the first order, we're not trying to do the killer price because that doesn't set up a good foundation for a good relationship, and a lot of the time it's all built on relationships.